Welcome in, everyone, to this week's edition of the It's Official podcast. It's Tuesday, and you know what that means. It's time for our 5 hot topics in horse racing. He's Jeff Siegel on the bat phone checking out. Everybody wants to call Siegel for the podcast and get set up. I'm Jeremy Plonk. My phone is not ringing here, though, Jeff, it is National Hamburger Day. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Have you partaken today in a hamburger?
Not yet.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have to. We promise the beef will be here in the show today as we cross our 5 topics.
Well,
Memorial Day in the rearview mirror. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention something, Jeremy, real quick, so before I forget it. I was at Santa Anita yesterday. I went by the winner's circle because I wanted to talk to the trainers after the race to get some information for the show and like where these horses are going to come in back. And I walked down there, and one of the owners of one of the winners in the races, the winner, part of the I think it was part of the Johannes Boop, comes up to me. I don't know who he. I mean, I never met him, and he comes up to me and says 3 words. No, it was actually 4 words. 4 words. He says, looks at me, and says, "I love your podcast."
All right.
He walked away. So I said, thanks and congratulations. So that made me feel good because we are obviously our listenership is growing by every week, and I'm glad people enjoy it, and I hope they still do.
All right, and if you're going to run into somebody, running into them in the winner's circle is the right place to do it.
They're usually in a good mood.
Everybody's having a good day at that point.
If they had lost, he might have come up to me and said, "You guys suck," but they didn't. They were happy. So he felt time to do compliments there. So.
Let's get to our first of 5 topics this week, because we do have a busy show for you. A lot of holiday racing, and there were some big favorites on the docket across Memorial Day weekend, and most of them delivered with star-studded performances. First up, we're going to look at the Thor's Echo Stakes. Yes, it was Cowbreds, but it was the Chosen Vron, not your ordinary Cowbred, doing it once again.
Sawazdi, the Chosen Vron, cruises up to him. Moose Mitchell swings up on the outside as they come toward the 8th pole. Sawazdi and the Chosen Vron. The Chosen Vron takes the lead. Sawazdi very game along the inside. And then it's Moose Mitchell in third. The Chosen Vron will win the Thor's Echo again. He's a remarkable racehorse and a future CTBA Hall of Famer. The Chosen Vron cruises in. Sawazdi second. Moose Mitchell third.
17th career stakes win for the Chosen Vron. He just keeps doing it, Jeff. He gives you those vibes of the star filly in the Mid-Atlantic back in the day, Extra Heat, where she just dominated, a 25-time stakes winner in her career. I don't know if the Chosen Vron's got 8 more stakes wins in him. Maybe he'll get to Extra Heat's total there, but what a remarkable regional sprinter, and we're going to see if he'll get back on the national stage, because the world's going to come to him this year with the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar.
Exactly. And first of all, he'll have 8 more starts or whatever it takes. If he continues to face competition like this, where he never really has to get out of a common gallop. Jock never moved on him. That was about like 60% of his energy. He still ran fast. He got a 90 buyer number, but he's gotten triple-digit buyer numbers. He had gotten triple-digit buyer numbers in 3 out of his last 4 starts. So he runs as fast as he needs to, and I think he will last because, number one, they space his races usually. They don't ask him to do too much.
Right.
And he never really has to be all out, although he was in his last race a little bit, but not this one. And again, now he has won a remarkable 12 out of his last 13 races. And if you think they're all Cowbred races, they're not. He won the Bing Crosby Grade 1 race at Del Mar last year, and at least you remember or forgot that, and I know you didn't, but Breeders' Cup is at Del Mar this year. So he's already a Grade 1 winner there. And the only defeat he had in that 13-race sequence was in the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita when he was behind Elite Power and Gunite. I mean, okay, I'll give him that. But no, he'll go to Del Mar, probably running the Bing Crosby again. Maybe we'll come back in the race at Santa Anita, the sprint prep. Maybe he won't even need that. And then hopefully we'll see him again in the Breeders' Cup. And that, anytime the Chosen Vron's in any race in California, I mean, he really spices up the program, and he continues to run and win. And he's, Frank said, he said he might be the CTBA Hall of Fame. He might be looking for bigger fish to fry than that if he were to be able to win a race like the Breeders' Cup. So he's just a crowd delight and just an incredibly talented and consistent and professional racehorse.
Look, 1-5, 1-9 on the tote board when he faces the State Breds. I get it, not a great gambling option, and this game is fueled by the gambling, and gambling is the most important part of this game. You'll never hear me say otherwise. But from fandom, I love to see horses like this, and if nobody wants to line up to run against him, it's not his fault, and he will take on some big comers when we get to Del Mar, I'm sure, this summer and into the fall. You know, these old campaigners that rack up the wins, that's what brings somebody into the game. A John Henry in the early 80s, you know, when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. You know, John Henry, I went back and looked up his stats today. His 39 wins, 30 of them stakes wins, you know. So we talk about extra heat winning 25 stakes races. John Henry won 30 of them. Little Bull John was another horse in Maryland who ran in the Breeders' Cup in the mile on turf, but was the top handicap horse in Maryland for almost a decade straight. He won 38 times throughout his career. Those are the kind of horses you remember and cement a legacy as a fan and keep you in the game forever. And now I'm a fan of the game and you know, an industry participant for more than 30 years, you know, but it's horses like that really get you hooked and keep you in there, along with the racing form and the past performances and studying the game. I mean, that's what really hooks you in long term. You know, great horses like that are very interesting. And then get that bug, you know, get the bug and get the form in somebody's hand. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of Memorial Day in here in just a little bit, but there's nothing you can do better for somebody else who wants to get into the game than show them great horses like that, give them a reason to want to come out, teach them how to handicap, and then they'll stick around. Let's talk more about some massive performances on Memorial Day weekend. Next up was Adair Manor, similar on the tote board and similar in her dominance. There was no contest for her in the Santa Margarita.
And it's Adair Manor. Henny's Crazy Train comes off the rail to try and make a race of it, and Coffee in Bed in the center, but with an eighth to go, it's all Adair Manor, 4-length lead. Henny's Crazy Train trying to fend off Coffee in Bed, but only to complete the exacta, as Adair Manor just towered over the competition. Never asked, just an afternoon workout, repeats in the Santa Margarita.
No doubt about this win. She'll be in the Breeders' Cup Distaff division. Again, they'll have to come to her in the fall at Del Mar. Jeff, this is a good Distaff division, right? I mean, we saw, you know, on Kentucky Derby weekend, the return of last year's champ in the division for Brad Cox. And there are plenty of good fillies and mares out there, but Adair Manor on the West Coast stands above them all.
Yeah, and we talked about the Chosen Vaughn having won a Grade 1 race last year at Del Mar, and the Breeders' Cup is at Del Mar. Well, guess what? Adair Manor, she won a Grade 1 race at Del Mar last year as well. So she's certainly going to be able to handle that track when she goes down there. And she has never been better. I always knew she had a lot of talent, but she wasn't always the most genuine. But now she's just outrunning everybody. She earned a 99 buyer in this race, triple-digit buyers in her previous two, and she never got out of a gallop easier. I know she's beating horses that she's supposed to beat. There's no doubt about that. But now she's winning easily, and she's still running fast. I mean, and who knows how fast she could have run if she had to in that race. And again, Baffert's treated her well. This race was every bit as visually impressive as the Apple Blossom was at Oakland in her last start. So, I mean, we talked about the stars coming out, and it was a great day of racing because they were there. They participated. The weather was spotless. It was perfect. No rain to worry about, obviously, at this time of the year here. And these horses, none of these horses are going anywhere. I talked to the trainers of some of these horses, most of them, and they said there's no need to go anywhere. We can go to Del Mar, stay in California, not have to worry about ship. And for those that belong, and most of the horses that we saw run this weekend in California will belong in the Breeders' Cup. So it's good for us. We get to see them, even though we'd like to see a little bit stronger competition, but it's always good to see a champion perform up to standard. And these ones over the weekend did just that.
How about Johannes and the Shoemaker Mile? This one, not the rubber stamp that we saw with the first two, but another sharp performance nonetheless. Let's go back to the Shoemaker Mile on Grass Monday at the Great Race Place.
It's Goliad, fantastic again. 1-2 coming to the quarter pole with Johannes looming, splitting rivals and coming after them now. De Jour winding up. He'll be extremely wide as the field turns for home. Johannes gets the first jump. He comes after and tackles. Fantastic again. Who's fighting hard in the center of the course. De Jour is eating up ground. Johannes neck in front. Fantastic again, running his heart out in second, and De Jour continues to close, but it's Johannes to win the Shoemaker Mile.
Johannes has been a horse on this show in the past. I know the first time that they put him on turf, Tim Yak team put him on turf, we had him as a star on Tomorrow, saying this looked like a future star on grass. It's turned out to be prophetic as a grade 1 winner of the Shoemaker Mile. Your thoughts of his performance?
Well, if you look at his form, you'll notice that his first 3 races of his career, sprinting on dirt. I don't think that's what he wants to do. At least in retrospect, we found that out. Since then, he's won 5 stakes. He's perfect 5 for 5 at Santa Anita on the turf now. And the one race that he got beat, it's the only race he got beat on grass, was at Churchill Downs on Derby Day last year as a 3-year-old on the American turf, when he got the most dreadful trip you could possibly imagine. You see, he's a horse with very good tactical speed. In that race, he found himself 12th of 13 during the early stages, got pinched back, shuffled back, was completely out of the race, flew home, got beat 2 lengths, should have galloped that day. So now we have to start thinking of him as a real contender in the division. The favorite in this race was De Jour, who was really good, and he just got outfooted. 1 mile and 33 flat here. Again, a very high number. I believe it was 101, which is career top for him. So he's getting better with age. Lightly raced Nyquist colt, so he's got the pedigree. I don't know why he doesn't run on dirt, but who cares? As long as we know what he wants to do, that's all that matters. Right. And now, and again, talking with Tim Yakin after the race, he'll go to Del Mar. Again, a horse, no need to ship. Breeders' Cup is here,
right?
And he'll have a race or 2, maybe 3. I don't know, at least 2, leading up to the Breeders' Cup. And I mean, with his style of running and his be able to blast home, I don't care who Europe brings. This colt's going to be in the thick of it.
You got to go back to the Julio Canani days of Silic and Val Royale in the Breeders' Cup Turf Division for the West Coast to really have some really strong hands to play in the mile division on turf. They could have it this year. Johannes looks really good. Another horse in that middle distance on the turf division kind of announced his candidacy for some bigger races over the weekend as well. It was the, Mr. Steele Stakes at Gulfstream Park, not one that just rolls off the tongue as a major race. It's going to springboard anybody to greatness, but the way Win for the Money won this one for Mark Cassey, he's going to be on to bigger and better things.
Home from the back is Eldon's Prince. They're at the top of the stretch. It's Win for the Money. He's looking good. 1/8 of a mile out. He's 4 to the good. Main Event is second with work to do to hold that spot is Charging Eldon's Prince and me and Mr. C. But look at this performance in the Mr. Steele. Win for the Money. Indeed. Sharp by 6 in the end.
He tried the Arlington Million last year. Maybe he goes back to the Arlington Million this year at Colonial Downs. He's got options going north of the border. Woodbine Mile, Cassey sending him back to Canada wouldn't be out of the question. This is a horse who by Breeders' Cup time we could be talking about as well.
No, we'll be talking about him like right now. I mean, I don't know what he was in the previous couple of years, but he's a different horse now. And we talked about him on our Friday show when we were handicapping the race for our handicapping show there. And we showed a workout. And that put, for me, that put him over the top. I didn't know if he was going to run this good. But when they breezed that well, and he went in 59 around dogs that were 35, 40 feet out and did it easily, I was surprised. I don't know what this horse was last year. This was his first race since December. But whoever he was last year, he's got to be a lot better this year, and he is. Gelding by Mohaymen of all horses. But this is a horse that, based on this race, he was only 2/5 off the course record for the distance. I know the course was fast, but they've been running on that fast course for several years now. And if you can break 39, and then the final time in this race is 1:38.51, I wouldn't be wanting to run against him. And so between him and Johannes, we've got a couple of new shooters really in the division that could be as good as anything that's out there right now in the older turf middle distance division.
Now, as for the fillies and mares, the filly and mare turf division, Anisette was one when she first came to the U.S., Jeff. We thought last year maybe she'd be a star. She's developing into one. She's kind of getting better with age, and the way she ran in the Gamely over the weekend says she's one in the filly and mare turf division we're going to have to watch.
Top of the stretch, Ruby Nell's lead down to 2. Olivia Meralda now takes aim in second. Anisette on the outside. Here's Anisette and Olivia Meralda. These two go on with it as Ruby Nell backs out. It's Anisette or Olivia Meralda. Nose and nose. Anisette with the advantage. Anisette and Umberto Rispoli to win the Gamely.
How far she'll want to go, she's kind of a tweener, right? I don't know if she goes all the way to the filly and mare turf or if Breeders' Cup aspirations are in play for her, if they'll cut back to the mile with Anisette. But she's now a 3-time Grade 1 winner, and you got to like what you see.
I did, and what was more impressive than anything for me is that usually she was one of these, or at least so far up until yesterday, she was one that would drop back pretty far and then hope for some fast fractions and hope to get through the pack and get up. She was laying 4th down the backstretch, first start since winning the American Oaks back in December, and she looks like she has wintered really well. She's grown up. She showed more tactical speed than she ever did. Going into the far turn, I bet on her, and I'm thinking there is no way they're going to outkick her. She's 3 lengths off the pace and hasn't been up. I asked to drop in the clear, and of course she was up in time. Now, she's another one that's going to stay in California. She's not shipping anywhere, but I like her. I love her. She's a legitimate U.S. North America Grade 1 type filly, but that division, whenever they bring them over from Europe, as they did last year, that is really salty. And I don't know whether she's going to be quite good enough to beat whatever the Euros send over. But that's the path she'll take, and then we'll see how much more development she has. But she is a legitimate Grade 1 winner here now, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know how good she's going to be, but she's good enough for me. I can tell you that.
That's a look at some of the American turf performers over the past weekend, but worldwide, a horse we've seen in America, Rebels Romance, a Breeders' Cup turf winner here in the States. He took his show on the road from Newmarket, the Charlie Appleby home base, all the way to Hong Kong and Sha Tin, and he was the winner in the Champions and Chatter Cup. First time we get to say that one on the podcast. Let's go back and listen into the call from At the Races.
Moments in time, Rebels Romance, they're on the outside. They're well clear on the rest as they approach the 300 metres. Rebels Romance has now got the upper hand. 200 metres left to go. He's cleared out, running on. His Massive Sovereign down the outside. Last City Blanche, and then came 5G Patch Senor Toba, but it's this globe-trotting equine superstar in the Godolphin Blue, Rebels Romance and William Buick have beaten 5G Patch second, Photo third, Last City Blanche, all Moments in Time.
Charlie Appleby knows no borders, Jeff, and they'll go anywhere with this horse. Remember, like before he was a star, he was like coming through Germany and these places, and we're wondering, is this horse that good on, the big stage, leaving, some of the European countries, and he absolutely takes his game anywhere. He's a fun horse, and we hope to see him back for a Breeders' Cup run.
Well, why not? I mean, yes, we discovered him in Germany, by the way, a couple of years ago, and no one ever knew who he was. Yeah. We said this horse could win the Breeders' Cup. He did. Below form last year, but back to his best after winning in Dubai and then coming to Hong Kong to win for fun against whatever they have there. No, he's definitely ticketed for the Breeders' Cup again, and he'll be a fun horse to watch. And it's good to see it. And what the common thread with these older turf horses I've noticed, Jeremy, and you mentioned, John Henry. They're geldings, so they last longer. They aren't heavy-bodied horses, and they are campaigned with the idea of keeping them in form for a long period of time. Don't worry about it because we'll go to study. No, these are horses that are campaigned to last till they're 9. And some of them will because like this horse. Got some age on him, and he's never been better. So, but it's fun to see. And Charlie, he'll go anywhere. And I'm not really sure why some of the other trainers overseas in Europe don't look at what he's done and do the same thing. Now he's got, he's got Godolphin and all that, but in other words, guys that have big, strong stables that could take advantage of it, and they don't do it as much as he does. He's teaching them how to play the game.
Yeah, and the purse money's bigger outside of Europe too. So put that on top of it. There's some good incentive to take some of these shots. Let's go to our next topic here this week, a long opening segment, but we're going to talk about Memorial Day as a racing holiday. It used to be the Met Mile. I mean, that was the race that we looked forward to every year on Memorial Day, the week before the Belmont Stakes, and sometimes where the calendar falls just a couple days before the Belmont Stakes. But it doesn't have the same cachet that it once did on Memorial Day, Jeff. Santa Anita still had a big card with the 3 major graded stakes yesterday, including the Gold Cup, which was won, incidentally, by Mr. Fisk. Injured in the running of that race, vanned off after the race with a condylar fracture. Bob Baffert reporting on Twitter that the horse would have surgery today. We don't have an update on Mr. Fisk, but as far as the headlines go for Memorial Day, they're just not as many, and they're not as big as they used to be. Seems we just want to shift everything to Belmont Stakes Day and wait for that one.
Yeah, I think they're overdoing it. I mean, obviously the NYRA and the management there have figured out that maybe one big day, and maybe it's for television. I don't know. I mean, that's some consideration as well. But one big day is better than three or four big days, which you can have. I remember when I was growing up. I hate to say that, but because it could have been in 19th century, But when I was growing up, it was the big days were always Memorial Day. I know out here in California, they'd have 60, 70,000 at Hollywood Park, and it was just a great day of racing. They only had 2 or 3 stakes, but they were there, And then you had the 4th of July, which was always a great day of racing, and then Labor Day was the 3rd major summer holiday, spring summer holiday that would had. And Labor Day is still pretty darn good, Jeremy. I mean, they've kind of salvaged that a little bit, But now Memorial Day is kind of a throwaway, and I mean, there were 2 Grade 1 races in North America yesterday, and they both were at Santa Anita. You'd have to think that somewhere along the line they could have put, kind of shifted a few around there to make that a bigger day than it was. I don't know. I know I'm old school. I know I'm old, but old school as well. But I would like to see some of these major races. You don't need many of them. Just 1 or 2 would spice up the program. I mean, I could barely tell you what NYRA ran yesterday. I mean, I looked at it. It didn't seem like it was that interesting. Whereas it used to be, as you mentioned, the Met Mile, and who could forget Conquistador Cielo running a mile in 33 and change on Monday, the Memorial Day, coming back in 5 days, and then winning the Belmont Stakes by, I don't know what it was, 13, 15 lengths. Those were exciting times. You don't get that anymore. And I think racing is missing out. I miss it, that's for sure. I know I do.
Yeah. The Met Mile last run on Memorial Day in 2013. So it's been a decade now since we've had that cornerstone. Lone Star Park has their big day on Memorial Day, but with their refusal to accept the HISA rules and challenge their constitutionality, they're not simulcasting abroad, so nobody got to see the Texas Derby and the Steve Sexton Mile and the big races at Lone Star on Memorial Day. And we'd like to see the Indy 500s over on Sunday. That's the big, everybody talks Memorial Day weekend in sports. It's the Indy 500, that's Sunday, and then it's gone, and there's nothing for Monday. And the one thing about horse racing is, the one common complaint is, well, you run in the afternoon on weekdays. Nobody can see it. Well, here's a prime opportunity to run in the afternoon on a weekday when everybody's off and have a chance to see it. I think it's an opportunity missed, and hopefully more tracks will put bigger races and have more events on Memorial Day proper, and try to build that up as a potential spot for us to get some vision out there. When you talk about the team sports, they're all playing at night, right? So you're not going to run into any NBA finals games and things like that by running Monday afternoon in the Memorial Day holiday. So let's go to our Triple Crown tracker. As you talked about the Belmont Stakes around the corner, we are a week away from the Belmont Stakes, and right now there's as many as 13 horses potentially towards the Belmont Stakes. Here's an updated look at the possibles for the third jewel in the Triple Crown. We'll probably get one of the two Kenny McPeak entries listed here. Mystic Dan, of course, the Derby winner. Torpedo Anna, the Oaks winner. She would have to supplement to this race. Both have been working pretty well from what we've seen on video. Seize the Gray, the Preakness winner. Sierra Leone, the likely favorite, I think, for the Belmont Stakes, coming off the nose runner-up in the Kentucky Derby. Then there's four potential horses for Todd Pletcher in here. Fierceness, Antiquarian, Mindframe, and Protective. All horses for trainer Todd Pletcher who are possible at this point. Jeff, what stands out to you on this list? What might you see changing between now and 6 days from now on Monday when they will enter for the Belmont Stakes? Entries for the Belmont Stakes will be next Monday, 6 days in front of the final jewel.
Well, if they all go, it would be just a great Belmont, even without a Triple Crown at stake. I don't think we'll see them all. You mentioned that trainers. I mean, Pletcher's not going to run 4, so we don't know who's going to show up and who's not. But it would be nice to see Mystic Dan run. I don't know if that's going to happen. Seize the Gray, Wayne's going to be there. You know that. I mean, that's definitely going to happen. Sierra Leone, as you mentioned, might be the favorite, and we'll take a look at a recent breeze from him. This was a domestic product, and I think it was significant that they worked Sierra Leone on the inside this time. Usually he takes the overland route and then kind of veers in and lugs in. He's already on top of the rail, and he looks like he's going straight and true to me, and he's doing it well.
Yeah, and sometimes positioning might be, like you say, just to try to figure something else out with him, because when he's outside of horses, he has absolutely done that left-hand turn in the stretch almost in every one of his starts. There with the rail inside of him, the adrenaline and the lack of space in there might be a good thing for him. And might we see some tactical change in the Belmont Stakes where they try to go inside with him? We're going to see a rider change. Interesting here that Flavien Prat has been named to ride Sierra Leone and will replace Tyler Gaffleone after the second place finish in the Kentucky Derby. What do you make of Prat picking up the mount, Jeff?
Well, I mean, I understand it. I mean, you got to blame someone, right? So take the jock off and try a new one. But what he has done this cold in his races has not gotten any better. And maybe a change in a rider will help. I mean, you won't know until you try it. We've seen what he's been doing. He's been winning, but then he may have cost himself the Derby. He got beat an inch or whatever it was. So to me, I understand it. And the way I like this breeze, it was just a slow, easy breeze. But the fact is he was straight and true. And I don't quarrel with what is being done here. I think that's probably a good experiment type of thing. But I like the way he breezed. I think with the time off in between, missing the Preakness, it's a good thing for him. He'd had a busy winter and spring, and I think he's going to fire fresh. And if he doesn't make any mistakes, he easily can be the one to beat.
And, not long ago, Flavien Prat was dominating the Southern California colony. And when he came east to Kentucky and New York, there was a lot of chatter from people who are anti anything west of the Mississippi in horse racing. Let's just say East Coast biased might be the word I'm looking for. That Flavien Prat wasn't going to cut it. He was coming to face the big boys and his soft Southern California style. And you're not going to run into a bunch of 5-horse fields now. And you're with the big boys now. Flavien Prat's riding first call for Chad Brown. He's riding first call for Brad Cox. He's riding first call a lot for Bill Mott. I mean, Flavien Prat's done all right for himself. So a lot of people who question whether or not Flavien Prat could fit in the big leagues, there's a big plate of crow and a lot of forks to go around to share off of that plate. Prat has risen to the top, I think, of the American riding colony right now. He and Irad Ortiz are the two jockeys in the United States right now.
I was a little concerned only because I didn't know whether there would be the kind of mounts there. A lot of guys had good business when he tried to crack that code, so to speak. Not that I didn't think he was good enough to perform with the best, and also he had a little bit of a reputation of being just a grass rider, which was never true. He was as good a dirt rider as a grass rider. So no, I think they and with the shrinking field sizes and more purse money back east, it made a lot of sense for him to go there. And as you pointed out, now if he's open, I mean, guys are thinking, if you're open, where am I going to get someone better I'm taking you. If you want my mouth, you got it, babe. So I mean,
Right.
I have and he's a very strong rider. He's not a Euro guy that is more finesse. He's strength. He's strong. So I think he will fit that horse. I really do. I think you'll see an improved race, and he might make the difference between winning and losing.
So our Belmont storylines, which McPeak will show up, right? He's got the Derby winner and the Oaks winner. Both won't run. We don't know about that. Can Sierra Leone run straight, and will Pratt make the difference with a different kind of trip? I don't think you're physically going to make Sierra Leone run straighter if he gets the same kind of trip again with that paddling in the front left, and just the way I think the physics are working against him. He just does that every single race. So maybe pinning him to the pine might be what ends up working for him in this respect. The other big question is, what is Todd Pletcher going to do? He's got 4 potential horses for this year's Belmont Stakes. He's a 4-time Belmont winner, 3 of those with horses who came off of races in the Kentucky Derby, losses in the Kentucky Derby, and rebounded to win the Belmont Stakes. Notably amongst those, of course, Mo Donegal most recently. Prior to that, Palace Malice. Pletcher's had success in this race in the past. He's also brought in a new shooter to the Triple Crown Series, like the Philly Rags to Riches, who won it. Here he's got a new shooter potentially in Mind Frame, and he's got the Derby beaten favorite in Fierceness. They're working in company here in upstate New York a couple days ago. Jeff, what do you make of these two coming to the wire?
You remember how Fierceness was training leading up to the Derby? He was blowing everybody out. He looked like the superstar that had won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I don't think he's looking as quite as good as that now. I mean, that's obviously a really good horse he's working with in Mind Frame, and he would look like he was going the easier the too early. But galloping out, I mean, who do you prefer here?
Yeah, Mind Frame. I don't think there's any question about it. I think he's struggling to keep up. And we talked about him working to the kitchen at Churchill Downs, like all the way out 7/8 after his final work before the Kentucky Derby. That's the last day that Fierceness has looked great, was that 5 furlong work. It was really a 7/8 of a mile work. And the on-site people and the people watching him gallop after that said he didn't gallop that great then after that work up to the Derby, after his final big move. And what I see here, I'm not overly impressed with. Of the 4 Pletchers who are possibles to run in the Belmont Stakes, I will be least surprised if Fierceness is not in the gate. I don't think they have anything to gain if they don't think he's absolutely at his best, right? I mean, his value is built into his 2-year-old form and his Florida Derby win. Yes, I mean, is he more valuable if he wins the Belmont Stakes? Absolutely. But his reputation could take a big hit if he gets smoked again like he did in the Kentucky Derby. And I don't know that he's training so great that I feel confident that he's going to come out and run his race. And when you have other options, we talk about this all the time. Who's the guy going to run in a race? He's going to run the best horse that he has in the race. And if Fierceness isn't doing well, Pletcher's got those options. Some other trainers might say, yeah, my horse, my Fierceness in my barn isn't that great coming up to this race, but I don't have anybody better. He's my best shot for the Belmont. Pletcher may have a better shot today, and he might have a better horse, but he might have a better shot today with one of these other horses. I'm not sure where Fierceness is right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in the gate.
I agree, and if I had him, I would go back to square one, find an easier race. I don't know, like the Pegasus or something, the one at Monmouth, or something that he will get a confidence boosting win, and also you'll find out where he's at. When you put him against horses he's supposed to blow away, he probably will, but then you can evaluate him and say, well, okay, I'm glad we ran here because he never would have won there. You find out about where you're at with the horse, and I wouldn't run him there. He's got too much to lose. I mean, he's already, you have to protect his resume, and especially since you've got a colt, if you want to run him, that might be better than him anyway. You put him in the Belmont. So,
and it's a 1.25 miles. There's still a question of the 1.25 miles, that a lot of these horses would have. So yeah, I say remove Fierceness, take your shot with Mind Frame and some of those other potentials, Antiquarian coming off the Peter Pan, and maybe even Perspective third in the Peter Pan, and take a shot there. Now, there could be another new shooter who's getting a lot of chatter right now for the Belmont Stakes, and we'll finish our Triple Crown tracker up talking about Batten Down. This is the well-bred Tappet. If it's Belmont Stakes, you got to think Tappet, but this isn't the 1.5 miles at Big Sandy, so I don't think we just plug those Tappet stats into the Belmont when we go 1.25 miles at Saratoga, but his pedigree is unmatched. He's out lot of closed hatches, of course, and she was dominant at Saratoga and other places as well. Let's give the fans a chance to see Batten Down win at Churchill in maiden company, and I'll let you get your thoughts on how he might stack up if he goes in the Belmont.
Batten Down on cruise control past the quarter pole, 5 lengths in front at the top of the stretch, and now it's 6. Mo Rum is set down for the drive. Daily Grind trying to cut away at that margin. Batten Down by 10 lengths with a furlong to go. Batten Down shaken up for just a bit more. It will be Batten Down going coast to coast. A geared down, wrapped up, much the best winner. Batten Down by 7. Daily Grind, Mo Rum, and Bettera.
Belmont trains this one. Of course, Mott won the Belmont Stakes with Drosselmeyer 2010, I think it was, with that victory in the Belmont. Might we see Batten Down take that big leap forward, Jeff?
Well, Mott's talking about it, and I have mixed emotions about this because I saw the quotes while we're considering it.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the form and said, he won a 1.25 mile maiden race on the lead at Churchill. What does that prove?
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the video and it just blew my mind. I mean, he made the lead, not because he, they sent him, they didn't. He just pulled the jock to the lead, galloped along, was into the bridle every step of the way, opened up at will top of the stretch, never asked for the lane, and still ran 1.25 miles at Churchill Downs and did it like faster than like 7 or 8 main track derbies in this 21st century. It wasn't like he ran slow, and he could have run way better. He's a big, good-looking colt. Well, I don't know how big he is. It's hard to tell on the video, but he's got. I know one thing: he's a really good mover. Galloped out 1,000,000 miles in front, and I don't know. Is he this year's? Could he be this year's Arcangelo, who was a little bit more advanced going into the Belmont? He had won the Peter Pan, but I wouldn't throw him out because we don't know. Bred like he is, lightly raced like he is, and coming out of that type of race at 1.25 miles, we know he can run that far. We don't know what his upside really is. On the other hand, man, what would you like to have him with a couple of more races and then into the Travers? I think that might be the safer way of going.
Yeah, he looks like a Travers horse. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's how
I would agree. He looks like a Travers horse, but. Yeah, and this is like Travers early, right? This is like the first edition of the Travers because you're going to Saratoga, you're going 1.25 miles. So if you say this is my Travers horse, is it my August horse or is it my Travers horse? Because this essentially is the Travers running the Belmont Stakes this year. So is he good now? Is he Mr. Right now? Or is he a horse who's going to be better in August, the way you want to look at it? But I think he's interesting in this spot, and we'll see if Batten Down stays in. I certainly trust Belmont. If he's going to take a shot in here, that the horse will be doing well. We will find out the entries for the Belmont Stakes, as we mentioned, on Monday. So 6 days from now. I think earlier I said they're drawing 6 days out from the Belmont. Of course, Monday to Saturday means it's 5 days out from the Belmont Stakes. But again, next Monday we will get the field. I believe it draws around 5, 6 o'clock Eastern in that hour during a ceremony on Monday next week. So we will know the field for the Belmont Stakes and all the field for the Belmont Stakes festival races at Saratoga when we come back here next week. So next week's show will be a full-on preview of the Belmont Stakes, and then we'll have our handicapping preview in a week's time of all the undercard stakes as well. So that's our Triple Crown tracker. Let's go next to our fourth topic this week on It's Official, living up to the hype. A lot of times the first-time starter is going to get play and get talk from a lot of folks and not live up to the billing. Eagles Flight, half-brother to the great Flightline, he responded to all of those big wishes with a big performance yesterday at Santa Anita.
Flavien Prat takes Eagles Flight about 4 lengths off the lead. He's one from the outside, threading through traffic, though. He's got a clear shot now as the field turns for home. Santarena with the experience, and Eagles Flight is coming after him with 3/16 of a mile to go. Santarena and Eagles Flight square off at the 8th pole. Santarena digging in. Eagles Flight straightens up, though, and powers past coming to the 16th pole. And the hype is real. Eagles Flight strides out beautifully to score by 3. Santarena gave him all he had, but he was second best and no match for Eagles Flight. Then it was Sully, followed home by Visceral, and it was a long way back. Tour Player was in a battle to complete the super high 5. The running time, a crisp 1:10.07 seconds.
And he galloped out about 8 in front. That's why we want to leave it go there. He didn't care who ran 5th or 6th there with Frank's rundown, but I wanted to show the gallop out there. Really nice performance from a horse who didn't have the easiest of trips. And a lot of times good horses will lose that first time out when they don't have a great trip, and then kind of light bulb comes on. They get a better trip second time, and they just put it all together. He put it all together for the final quarter mile of this race, Jeff, and looks like he has a bright future.
No, does he ever? I mean, he took a lot of dirt in his face. He didn't break badly. He just didn't have the early zip that we were kind of anticipating, because he had trained so well, although never really asked to show early speed. But the curling came out on him in the first quarter mile, because he didn't really get up in there like Flightline did. Flightline just pulverized his field from gate to wire. I think at this stage of the comparing the two, obviously he's Flightline won by a pole first time out and ran 108 and change, got a huge number. Eagles Flight had to work a little harder to do that, but I love the race because he took so much dirt. He angled out, he accelerated on the turn, went by his horse, still was kind of green and not really persevered with in the final stages because he didn't have to be. Galloped out very much. So yeah, I don't think John is going to do anything silly with him. Some trainers would have a horse like this and go right into stakes. I don't think that's going to be the case. He's probably going to keep him on dirt. There really isn't any dirt stakes at Del Mar. Most of them are on the grass. I think there's one in September. So I wouldn't be surprised.
The shared belief is in there.
Yeah, and I don't think he would be opposed to running him in a now one as a 2. And you can, I mean, I remember Arrogate doing that. Not that Bob trained him, but you just give these horses time to get experience and get more mature, get stronger. His day will come. In fact, even John said, Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile would be great, but that's down the road. I mean, you don't have to rush into stakes races right now. So I think he's going to run as far as they want him to run. I think he's a definite middle distance to maybe classic distance type of horse. He did what he had to do, and I think he did run to the hype. I mean, people expect him to win by 10 or 12 lengths. Unrealistic. But boy, I like the way he did it. Sometimes you get these horses, they get loose in the lead first time out, they went off and they look great, and then they find out they can't take pressure. But this colt, boy, he overcame everything he'll ever have to overcome in a race the way he did it.
If he can get a summer allowance, maybe the end of September, you got the Pennsylvania Derby if you want to stay with 3-year-olds, or if you got to go against some older horses, it gets a lot tougher jumping into stakes ranks against 3s and up. So there's still plenty of chances to run against straight 3-year-olds, and maybe even Malibu towards the end of the year, if you're still going around one turn. So plenty of options. Look, he's already made it to the races once now as a 3-year-old in late May of his season. So like Flightline, he may not run that often. We might not see him again to the Malibu. Hopefully, knock on wood, that's not the case. But given the history of his big brother there, about every 6 months he was a comet coming out of the sky when we were fortunate enough to see him. But living up to the hype, yes, Flightline's brother, Eagles Flight. Our Stars of Tomorrow segment always wraps us up here on It's Official, and you could have said that was our Star of Tomorrow, but that was too easy. So Jeff went fishing for another debut winner last week. It came at Churchill Downs on Saturday. The name, Pride's Crossing. Put this one on your list.
Comes away with the lead. Halston Rose is second. Genetics pops outside from third. Racing for the mid-stretch marker. Pride's Crossing getting away now. Getting away by 3. Genetics leaning on Halston Rose, second and third. Final 16th coming. Pride's Crossing now by 4 and now by 5. Good-looking debut for Pride's Crossing, who wins by 4 in the end. Genetics was second. Halston Rose was third. And Not Guilty fourth.
Like the way that one leveled off and finished up. Jeff, give us your thoughts on Pride's Crossing.
I always say that 7/8 is a tough distance for a first-time starter. If you're a speed horse, you got to be really fit, maybe fitter than you'd want him to have your horse first time out. You got to train him so hard to get fit. So that's tough. And then sometimes, you win going 7/8 because the front runners just fall down in your face and you're up in time and you win unexpectedly. But this filly, she was not unexpected in any way, shape, or the form, because she had very good tactical speed. She wasn't in front early, But I like to see that because this filly is definitely going to be a route type, by quality road who kind of gets you a little bit late developing type of filly or colt. And so her first start here in mid-May, and again, promising to be better over distance to ground. The dam was by Galileo, and I suppose that there's stamina there too, you know. And
Yes.
She was a stakes winner, but mostly an American dirt family. Second dam, AZ Warrior, won the Frizette, which was by Bernardini. Third dam was by Carson City, produced JoJo Warrior, who was an Oaks winner here in California. Easy Warrior, the 2-year-old stakes winner here. Jay-Z Warrior, she was a multiple stakes winner in New York. So it's all basically, other than the mare, it's all dirt. And that bodes well for the late part of this 2024 for a filly and mare or any kind of 3-year-old filly who wants to run long.
All right, Pride's Crossing, our star of tomorrow. We recap our 5 topics this week. Stars shine throughout weekend stakes. We saw several big-time favorites deliver at Santa Anita, including the Chosen Vron in Adair Manor. Johannes looks like a horse in the middle distance turf division who has some real markings of a up-and-comer, as does the horse out of Gulfstream Park, the Mr. Steel winner, win for the money. We also saw a winning performance internationally from Rebels Romance, trying to keep it going at the advanced age now of trying to return to the U.S. perhaps for a Breeders' Cup Turf repeat victory. It's not your father's Memorial Day. We talked about how it used to be on Memorial Day with a lot bigger stakes and the Met Mile just missing from Memorial Day. We'd love to see that race return to its proper spot on that calendar. So maybe in the future we can see a Met Mile Memorial Day return for the first time since 2013. Our Triple Crown tracker showed you a couple big workouts over the past few days where Fierceness and Mindframe were in company. Sierra Leone was working towards a potential start with Flavian Pratt in the saddle for the Belmont Stakes. We showed you the new shooter Batten Down and all the prospects for this year's Belmont Stakes, the draw coming up on Monday. Living up to the hype, it was indeed Flightline's half-brother Eagles Flight doing just that. And our star of tomorrow was Pride's Crossing out of Churchill Downs. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play the game. Jeff, we always give a little extra bonus topic when sometimes there's an irreverent topic that comes up or something controversial. But fans of this podcast know you and I love college sports as much as anybody out there. You're tied to the UCLA Bruins. Certainly a big loss for the Bruin family in recent days when the passing of Bill Walton announced yesterday. Bill Walton, one of the iconic figures of college basketball of all time. Of course, he had an injury-plagued playing career in the NBA and went on to maybe become even a more renowned broadcaster than he was player for people of a certain age and vintage. A life well lived for Bill Walton. Your reflections?
Well, I saw him play as a freshman at UCLA. That goes back to 1971, I believe it was. And I had heard about how great he was. Back then, there was no, obviously, internet. You would never be able to see a player like that unless you actually went and saw him. There's no games were being televised among the freshmen. So I said to a friend of mine, I said, look, I'm going to go see Bill Walton play. I know he's supposed to be great. I want to see it to believe it. I saw him play in that one game, and I'd love to tell you that I knew he was going to be great right then and there when I saw him. And I told my friend, I don't think he's that good. Just a big slow guy, you know. He wasn't slow, by the way, but what did I know? And then that was the early stages of my realization that I knew nothing about scouting basketball, because not only was he a lot better than I thought he was, but he was dominant at UCLA and won a couple of national titles, and then went on and become one of the best players in the NBA. I met him once indirectly. I was at a UCLA practice, and I was talking to a guy, and I was shooting my mouth off like I actually knew something, and he overheard. But I did know something, so he comes over to me. So he doesn't introduce himself. He just starts talking to me, like, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" I was feeding him information, and I don't think I think I impressed him. I don't know how I managed to do that, but he was very kind, very thankful, very appreciative of the information I gave him because I did know the team. And that was it. You know, he worked in television. I never got a chance to cross cross paths with him, but from what I knew and from what people told me, he was really, truly a really great guy.
Well, we love to follow college sports, and that's a big deal to us. And some people and some teams and some events just kind of are part of your lifetime and part of your history. And certainly people who have watched the NBA or watched college basketball for any length of time are certainly tied to Bill Walton, and some of the memories they have of their favorite teams could be games that Walton called or broadcasts that they saw, or if you go back far enough to games that he actually played. The great 21 for 22 game in the NCAA tournament, one of the all-time great performances of all time, belongs to Bill Walton, and it can hardly be one up unless you go 22 for 22 from the field. So those are Jeff's memories, and our salute to Bill Walton, one of the icons of broadcasting and, of course, of college and pro basketball as well. We'll be back next week on It's Official, where we have our official Belmont Stakes preview show. That'll come up a week from today. Between now and then, Jeff and I will return on Friday for the First Call podcast, where we handicap 8 stakes races for the weekend. Big night at Penn National coming up on Friday night. The Penn Mile. Maybe we'll throw that race into our simulcasting. Frankie Dettori comes to Grantville. He'll be the biggest name there in Grantville since John Henry ran in the Chocolate Town Handicap back there at Penn National. I think it was 74 maybe or 78 or something like that when John Henry appeared last at Penn National. But looking forward to that. I might even make a trip down to Penn National to see Frankie do a flying dismount if he can get a win at Penn. So we'll try to check that out on Friday night. But that'll be part of our handicapping for the show coming up on Friday. On behalf of Jeff and everybody with First, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you on Friday.